So with that, if I can give more specific examples of how Cinemorphics works and how you can experience it easily yourself. I mean, you can, if you just want to try it out, you can go to another town, dress completely differently than you ordinarily do, decide that you want to, come up with another character, interact with people for one entire day as that character, somewhere where there's nobody around who knows who you are, and see how that feels like. Those types of exercises have been used by a whole variety of different sorts of people, all the way from Carlos Castaneda types to therapists and other people. So, I mean, there are a lot of ways to kind of get at this, but are there other questions? Yes.
It's a little bit related to this gentleman's question, but more pragmatic. Did you, for yourself or when you've advised other people in doing this, do you reinvent things like preferences in food, like less external things, but habitual behaviors and things like that?
Yes, that's important. There's another anecdotal thing that relates to that. But yes, the answer is trying to change preferences or whatever can really go to changing more than just the surface. The anecdote I'm thinking of here, many of you probably heard of Russell Targ, the writer. One of his books is Miracles of Mind. There was a situation years ago in which it looked like he had lung cancer. He got some x-rays at one point that showed some spots on his lungs. The doctor said, well, you have to come back after the holiday. This was before Christmas. You have to come back after the holidays and we'll do more tests, but it looks pretty bad. Looks like it's pretty serious. We're going to have to do something about this. So he went to an alternative healer that he was working with, who put him through a regimen that basically was like what I'm talking about. She had him buy a whole new wardrobe, start eating all different kinds of foods, stop jogging, start doing something else. The idea here was to create a situation where the disease did not recognize the host because the host had changed. The host had left the room and there was a new host. And so but that involved a lot more than just the surface. I mean, it involved preferences and other kind of things that you're talking about. And they're interesting, off-the-wall, weird ways that this thing seems to be expressed too. For example, in what some people think is real, some don't, this multiple personality disorder. You can have situations where the altered personalities, certain physical characteristics can change completely. Eye color and all sorts of things. Also, there are things that you can change with hypnosis, physical things that. So there is a depth component, a quote depth component. There also is a physiological component that can go along with this. So it's not just the surface behavior. It's not just the actor on the stage being able to pull off a magnificent performance of Hamlet. It's a lot of other things if you take it seriously. And I can tell you, from my own experience, that things like changing, I changed my food preferences, for example. Obviously, I changed my consumption preferences. And by the way, it worked. It worked with no other support system except my wife and a few friends who really were encouraging me to, not die. But the technique itself seemed to work. And I didn't look the same, I didn't feel the same. After, a period of time, I was just not the same person. Now, I went back to making movies, which is what I'm doing now. But there was a big period, chunk of time in there where it was a different person walking around. So, and I know, go ahead.
So when you mentioned you went back to making movies, I'm wondering if then some of those old tendencies came back and preferences from when you were making movies before.
There are triggers that happen. Not really. I mean, but I was aware of what the triggers are. When you're making movies, the last shot of the day is called the martini shot. And so if you're on the last shot of the day and everybody's saying, hey, it's a martini shot, and they're mixing the drinks, is there a twinge if you aren't supposed to be, if you don't want to drink anymore? Well, there's a recognition, but there was no, the preferences had changed. And so I haven't had a problem with that. Everybody else can have their martini and I'll have my Diet Coke or whatever. So, yeah.
I am a little skeptical. I'm not sure. I appreciate that we're all multifaceted in our characters, but what you're describing seems to me to be possibly an adoption of a personality rather than addressing the underlying issues that led the earlier personality into bad ways. I mean, for example, a lot of addictions are an escape from our inability to, because we find reality unbearable, so we hide. And a lot of that inability to find reality bearable comes from stuff that happened to us. Mm-hmm. And I think we have the option of addressing the stuff that happened to us as a child, or another option is to step away is to not address those issues and step away from our lives and adopt a new persona. And I think if we, and I compare what you're describing, say, to the AA approach of surrender and living day to day, living in the moment. And it seems to be that would be an approach where you would have an integration of personas rather than a denial of an aspect of your person, which seems something that you're describing.
Well, I'll have to answer this quickly because I'm out of time. First of all, I didn't want to make this a discussion of addictions, although they can be discussed in relation to non-duality and so on. What I found with AA, which I tried before I did it the other way, was that you are an alcoholic all your life. I'm not. The other ways that I did try prior to doing this in my own case didn't work. This did. I haven't had a drink in 18 years. That doesn't mean, that I won't again. But addressing the underlying stuff and whatever, again, I would say the same thing that I said to this gentleman here. If you make certain changes on one level, you're changing everything. You are changing everything beyond a certain point. And with that, this could be a long discussion, but I'm going to have to surrender the microphone here. Okay, thank you.